Servus, Matthias here, and this is Single Track. Today, I'm reconnecting with Gretchen Ta from Bremerton, Washington, on the Olympic Peninsula. I first chatted with her and Nancy Phillips way back on episode 16 after their successful FKT run on the Press Traverse, crossing the Olympic National Park from south to north. Now, almost 4 years later, we discuss her long stretch of injury, but more importantly, her work as a race director for the fun but gnarly Dirty Turtle races at Green Mountain just outside Bremerton. And, dear listeners, Gretchen comes bearing gifts. I got a free race entry to the Dirty Turtle races to give away at the end of the show. You gotta listen and be quick, because those ultra sign-up codes are only good until they're taken.
Yeah, it's probably been one of the biggest hurdles for Dirty Turtle is just the logistics of aid stations and multiple land managers and coordinating multiple aid stations.
Well, and I mean, I'm curious how you feel, and you sort of brought this up a little bit as a topic, but I get a sense that now that COVID's over, right, everything is back to normal, haha, like races are coming back and people are signing up. But I feel like we don't have our mindset yet fully in the giving back and volunteering and participating, right?
Absolutely.
I get that feeling from various race directors. They're like, oh, like, help, I need, right? And
yeah, I think getting volunteers, and I feel like it's a good term to describe herding cats, maybe a little bit. Finding people, and the big problem I have every year is last minute changeovers, like so and so can't make it, and now it's like, oh well, you had a pretty big job, now I gotta fill this kind of last minute, and it's not something that can go without somebody in that job. So yeah, keeping volunteers, and so one of the things I've been doing year after year is kind of giving people clear jobs or clear roles, and having like one person in charge of the aid station, and they get to make all the decisions from there, like what food they want to serve. Mm-hmm. And we do aid station themes. It's kind of like the Javelina 100 a little bit, in that we've had some fun ones over the years, like flamingos and Hawaiian shirts, and
I mean, I think that
there was talk of possibly a That's What She Said aid station this year. So, yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be a Dirty Turtle race without that, right?
Yeah. So there'll be some really funny ones in store for runners this year, which I'm looking forward to seeing. So
fantastic.
They do all that themselves. I give them creative freedom to do whatever they want to do to make it their own and personalize it, so it's just neat.
I like it. We're already like deep in the conversation. Gretchen is with me here on Single Track. You are back on. Welcome. And what's super exciting about this is that you are back on Single Track because you were one of the very, very first guests. Episode 16 you were back on.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be back, Matthias.
This is like almost 4 years ago, and the reason why you were on back then was because of something pretty phenomenal, because you put down the FKT for the Press Traverse in the Olympics. That feels like a million years ago.
Boy, it sure does. We very briefly held that FKT, and then some good friends of ours went out and ran it and beat our time. So
you see what's
about getting back out there.
Nice. What's really cool about the FKT website is that if you fail to set an FKT because somebody had already put one out and you're slower, then you don't show up on the website. But if you once had the FKT and then somebody comes out and beats you, your name is still up. And I like that.
In history somewhere.
I know, right? So your name is still on the historical board. But that was 4 years ago. A lot has passed since. take us a
Yeah.
little bit on this journey, because you battled injury for a really long time and sort of still. And tell us a little bit where you are at and what happened and what's going on.
So 2020 really was quite the year. I mean, we had COVID, we had race cancellations, yeah, everyone knows 2020, right? But early in 2020, it was actually kind of a blessing that the race got canceled because of COVID, because I was dealing with some pretty bad plantar fasciitis, which eventually I ruptured the plantar fascia.
Okay, I
And
didn't know that was possible. Ouch.
yeah, it was really exciting. We were out mountain biking because, what do runners do when they're injured? We pick another hobby.
Oh, look, low impact.
Yeah, so we were out mountain biking and I stepped off my bike. We were going down a twisty, turny trail, and it was a really tight switchback. So I kind of stepped off my bike and instantly regretted it because it was like a pop. And then I was like, oh, that's not good. So went to podiatry. They're like, well, you fixed the problem. It's no longer tight and inflamed. Now it's just flapping there and inflamed. So, yeah, I spent 6 weeks in a boot, which, if anyone's wondering, yes, you can still ride a Peloton bike in a boot.
Okay, nice. At least gives you something to do.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so then when I was recovering from plantar fasciitis and rupturing that, I found out that I had a Morton's neuroma in the same foot, which is basically nerve inflammation between the ball of your foot, between the joints. Super, like burning, tingling in the toes. And yeah, I've had a lot of feet issues, so had some injections. That's finally gone and better. And now I'm slowly coming out of the woodwork back onto the trails, and building miles. So yay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, this is a long time recovery. Is there a time in where you're like, you know what, running shoes, goodbye, this is it? Or
For a time, yeah, I was like, am I ever gonna get back to this? And so I've been pretty active with the mountaineers and doing a lot of climbing and backpacking and rock climbing, and so it's been nice because it's given me an outlet still for stuff that I can do that doesn't bother other chronic stuff, and it still gets me places where I want to go, right? And it's a little nice because we get to stay longer out there than if we were running. So it's been nice.
well, that's cool. So at least you are not completely locked inside. You are able to get out and get to do some stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about your work and your doing with the Mountaineers a little bit, but let's talk about race directing, because that's partially why you're here. Around about the same time, I think a year before you did the Prestiverse, Dirty Turtle was birthed. 2017, I see the first year on Ultra Sign Up, results on Ultra Sign Up. Take us back. What made you put on a race? What was the impetus, the dream, the motivation, inspiration?
I think a lot of things came together for that. We were kind of a newer group, the Evergreen Turtle Rockets, and spent a lot of time running at Green Mountain. There was really only one race out there at that time. It was a fat ass race called Doppler 50K. It was around Thanksgiving every year, and it was just, you show up, you run the course, you bring your own stuff, traditional fat ass. But otherwise, there wasn't really any races out there. And at the time, there was the Fort Gamble Heritage Park, where they were trying to purchase the acres from the landowner to turn it into a park. So Forterra, the organization, was raising money for that. And there was a deadline. So the county and we had a limited timeline to raise funds to save Port Campbell from being developed and sold off. So we put together a race. The goal was to just all money we raised was going to go right to Port Campbell. And so we kind of marketed the first year as kind of a fat ass, but donations. And then everyone brought a bunch of food, and it was very much not a fat ass. But we did raise a lot of money. I think it was $2,000 for an acre, or to buy an acre was about $2,000. And so we raised enough to buy an acre. And it was really special to just come together. And I had never directed a race before. So Chuck Walensky and I both paired up, and I think we did a pretty good job.
Well, you wanted to do it the following year, or you were talked into doing the following year. So clearly you didn't completely suck. That's awesome.
Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. But, with logging and everything, the course has changed. I think every year we've hosted it. Just because you got to move a little bit here, a little bit there, or that gets logged and now that trail's gone. So it's been kind of I have to update Ultra Sign Up to actually say those previous times are way faster than anything people are throwing down these days. But yeah, the course has been fun.
I do think that, especially if you have longer courses, even on shorter courses, I think that runners are so focused in times and comparing themselves historical and stuff, but courses change so much. Trails are being built. I mean, even if the trail is sort of the same, right? I mean, one trail work party smoothing out a trail, taking out some puddles or whatever, and all of a sudden you can run faster, right? I mean, I think things change quite rapidly, and so comparing historical data is always a little bit iffy. Well, you're coming back for the following year. Now you don't have to raise funds anymore. So take us down the years here.
So the following year, we didn't really have to raise money for anything. And it was pretty clear that this was going to be something that was going to continue year after year. Because how do you do an event like that and then just be like, okay, that was it, guys. Everyone's pretty amped up now every May. So, wanted to try and make a company, so we put together an LLC, and so we have Evergreen Turtle Rocket Running LLC now to have insurance and stuff like that, and we made a website and have all the formal stuff. But I think the biggest thing we've been able to do is save and purchase a lot of our own race equipment, which has been nice. So in the beginning, it was a lot of borrowing, begging, stealing from Paulsville Running and other race directors out here. But now we've got our own trailer and cones, which are awesome because those are super expensive.
Yes, cones are very expensive indeed. So you don't do this full time. You have a full-time job. So when the race weeks come, I mean, you are just like blisteringly busy, right? Do you take vacation to try to run the race?
Every year I'm like, I should take more days off right before the race. And every year it's like, so I'm a nurse practitioner and I work in an allergy clinic. And this is literally the busiest time of the year for us.
Oh my gosh. It's like block out. You shall not take vacation. Oh man.
Yeah, so I think I took Monday off after the race, and I have Fridays off, so it's kind of like 4-day weekend whirlwind of just getting everything done in those days.
That's crazy. So it's a 25K and a 50K. You've got a team with you. You don't have to mark the course all by yourself. But there is still, I mean, I do this race directing too. I mean, it's fascinating and it's fun to you almost have like this project plan. I mean, do you have like a Trello board or I mean, you do. I mean, it's in some respect, we talk about races and we talk about it that it's like community driven and volunteer based and dirty on the trails and stuff. But realistically, there is a structure underneath that is like just straight up hard-blooded project management, right? It's signing people tasks and checking things off 3 weeks ahead of time. I need this and I need this. I mean, do you feel like you're the ultimate taskmaster?
Yes, and that was one of the best things that I learned, or a skill called delegation, because trying to do it all yourself is impossible. And so we made bosses for different areas. Like I have someone in charge of the food, and their job is to make sure all the aid station food gets divvied up, and each aid station, when they're heading out that morning, is taking what's allotted for them. And, that person also helps me divvy up like cutting boards and knives and stuff like that, just to help get the aid stations the food and serving stuff that they need. And then I have someone who helps me with, each aid station has their own boss, and they're in charge of their volunteers and, the coordination that goes into race day and checking in runners and making sure no one's missing on the course. And then I got like a person in charge of like medical stuff. And so I only have to talk to them for certain things, and they know what their role is. Makes it so much easier for me.
Yeah.
I don't even give myself a job on race day because I'm like a chicken with my head cut off, just running around.
No, it is true. And I think you, in terms of like logistics, organization, and development, you're sort of a few years ahead of me because of COVID. Like my races haven't really been developed and they're all fairly short. And I'm sort of at this place where I almost can run the entire thing. This is going to come to a breaking point this year, but at least I can mark the entire course. I can buy all the food. So I'm almost there, but I mean, it's a complete madhouse if I do, right? So having that level of delegation is smart and keeps you sane, and especially at race day, it keeps your head clear. So you can do what you want to do because it's not just logistics. You want to create an awesome atmosphere for the runners, right? You want to be the heart.
That's my favorite part.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
I was just listening to your podcast last week, and one of the things that stuck out to me, or was it on Facebook? I was reading. Someone shared something on Facebook. I think it was Gretchen Ta talking about race directors, and you put so much time in, and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Every year you go through this 2-week period where you're like pulling your hair out and you're so stressed. And then you get to race day, and, if you've put in the time and everything's organized, and then you just get to sit back and reap the rewards of hanging out and talking to the runners when they come in and congratulating that person on their first 50K. And it's just, I get so much more back than I have to put into this. So I think that's what keeps me coming back year after year.
Yeah. I've got a couple volunteers who help me out every year who are completely not runners themselves. They don't run races, they don't understand trail and ultra running. They just love the atmosphere at the finish line, and their sort of observation of seeing the runners' faces when they come in that feeling of excitement and exhaustion and accomplishment and pride, they see that, right? I mean, we sort of expect to see that because, well, we are doing it. We know what that feels like, right? But they who don't even ever put a bib on, they see that in people's faces. And for me, that's what is so worth creating these type of experiences, right?
Hands down, that is the best part.
Yeah. And I was just talking to somebody else about this, how these races, because in some respects, we wouldn't need races. You're just talking about going out with the mountaineers, right? They don't have events where you put on a bib. there is a complete different way and complete other way of going out and enjoying the outdoors, right? And so
Right.
we are not even so much about the competition, right? It's not even so important to come in third or fourth or 12th, right? But by putting up markers and organizing a safe environment, you're enabling people to experience the outdoors that otherwise would never dare to set foot on trails.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the trails that we use in Dirty Turtle they're not on the map really, or at least what DNR publishes online, probably for good reason. I don't think many people would really care to venture onto those trails on a normal hike or trail run anyways. So I love them though, because they're very picturesque. First of all, you're in this like super mossy, overgrown trail. It's very narrow. But the roadies, because we do this in May, the roadies are just like popping everywhere. And you're just like running through this field. You feel like a kid. And then you turn the corner and you see this stupid, rocky, rutted climb. And you're like, I'm going to put a trail camera out there one of these years, because I think that would have probably the best race pictures.
For sure.
Stupid trails.
Yeah.
All the middle fingers. Cussing.
Yeah. Thanks for making me go up this.
Yeah. But I think it's a good season opener. A lot of runners have said that they're training for longer stuff in the summer. And I mean, the race is got a pretty good reputation for being a tough course, because I mean, in the 50K, I mean, I've seen different Strava accounts, but you know, it's anywhere from like 73 to 7,600 feet of elevation gain. And they're not in small gradual chunks. They're usually like the course profile is like up, down, up, down, up, down. And, you know, there's some climbers trails on there up to some steep rocks. And
no, it's awesome. And it's awesome. I mean, as a side note, it's very awesome that DNR allows you to run these courses, because down in the Capitol Forest, I don't get a permit for anything, for any trail that is not on the map. Like, I have these amazing trail ideas, route ideas, and I don't get them approved because you only get to run what is on the map, which makes the races out in the Capitol Forest a little bit boring, in a sense that most runners who run regularly out there, right? They know certain trails, and they're like, why aren't we running them? I'm like, well, because I don't get the permit for it, but thanks for asking.
Yeah, there's a newer land manager there this year who I was a little bit nervous about getting our permit for the same reason, and did have to make some adjustments to the course, such as like stream crossings and stuff like that, you know, some of those trails go through some fish-bearing streams, and so we had to reroute a section or two. But so far they've been pretty good about, because the trails that have been out there, like the moto trails, have been there for at least a decade. And I think they're looking to get some of them formally adopted into the trail system. It just takes money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think they're very hesitant. And I understand that, because once it's adopted, they need to commit to maintaining it, right? And I think that's where it gets tricky, right? So I understand their reasoning for it. But it's cool that's one of the upsides, right? That the whole aspect of having something grandfathered in it really opens doors. That's why I was so fast in immediately jumping on Beast of Big Creek, because I didn't want this to lapse. like, I needed to get that permit immediately turned around. Yeah, I was worried that they're like, well, who are you? Wait, what? Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's start this process all over.
John.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start this process all over again. So it's like once you have a permit, it's hard for them to argue that it shouldn't happen, right? Without anything major to change, right?
And that is the nice. So they have been doing like multi-year permits for our race, which makes me have less anxiety, right? Because it's like, okay, good. Whew, okay, we're covered for at least the next 2 years after this, even. So we're good.
Yeah, no. That is great, because that's one of those things, talking about project management. I'm working with 3, 4, 5 different land managers or something, right? And there is a specific time when permits are being approved and when you need to start talking to them. And if you talk to them before, they're not even interested in that because they have their window. And so you start your little dance months and months in advance, right?
Oh, I feel like our dance for Dirty Turtle is like a year-round process. I mean, I don't know about your permits for Capitol Forest, but ours for the DNR land up here, they've worked a service clause into the permits. So we have to give DNR an hour of trail work time for each participant we anticipate including on the permit. So that's runners and volunteers and spectators.
Yeah, so I mean, that's for you, that is like over 200 hours ish, right?
Right.
Well, let's talk about this. That's an interesting thing, right? Because I want to talk about this, but just to comparison, like with my city parks, it's fairly easy. They just they want money. They just like, okay, based on how many hours you're out there, here's how much it's going to cost. And then with the national forest, for Beast of Big Creek, they taking a percentage of the proceeds. Right? So you basically put a budget up front, and then they, conservatively charge you for the permit, but then they require you to submit a P&L statement after the race, essentially saying, here is what I made, and then they assess a percentage, right? Which is normal for national forests. Everybody who has a national forest permit deals with this, but that's also something completely new. Well, let's talk about your volunteer hours. How are you handling that? How are you doing that?
That's a good question. Each year. I mean, we probably start this process every year, kind of trying to rack up enough hours. I like to have all the hours done before the race. They give me the whole year to do them, but I like to get everything just paid for up front. So usually the October before the race, when things start getting rainy and, we're not going out to the Olympics to run anymore and backpacking season's over and people are more staying at home, I start putting trail work parties on the calendar for the running group, the Turtles. And, it's usually like the first Saturday of the month. And we'll coordinate with DNR and pick a project. If there's been like a big storm and there's some trees down, we'll go take care of the trail and cut up trees that have fallen, and the trail's got damage or isn't draining well. We'll cut drains and clear stuff out of the trail and restore tread. And we'll just do these work parties, and for every person that shows up, we get an hour. So if we have like 5 people for 4 hours, we get 20 hours. So the hours, they go by pretty quick, but it's just trying to recruit people, because me doing 200 hours myself, that would take a while.
Well, that would take you back to full-time job.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, this is a hobby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Extracting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, it's
did
pretty
you
busy.
did you get trained and you can go out solo? Because like cutting down trees, there's obviously a risk involved in that. You need to know how to do that, and building drainage and drainage and stuff. Do you have people with you who are the experts who basically say, okay, this is how we're doing this, and you do the work, or are you like have
Yeah.
done it often enough that you're trained up to be an official trail builder now that they trust you to do this?
They, I have, I think, a certain amount of trust to lead a work party in absence of DNR people being there. So I have like gate keys so we can drive into the work location and do a safety check at the beginning of the work party, protect your eyes and, don't put sticks in there and stuff like that. Uh, and, but as far as like sawing like big trees, I leave that to them because they're pretty particular about who uses chainsaws on their land in an official capacity. So, I mean, if they're smaller trees, like 6 inches, 8 inches in diameter, and they're not too technical, we'll just take care of those with hand saws. Yeah, most of the work we're doing is like brushing. So, trimming back overgrown trails and taking care of that stuff.
What's your feeling? That was one of the sort of one of the subjects that you wanted to talk about on this show. What's your feeling? Do trail runners love the trail work? Is that something that they see part of them being a trail runner? Is it part of their identity? Is it something that they feel like is a necessary evil? Like, how hard is it for you to get people out there?
Some years are definitely harder than others. I think there's a fair amount of people in our group who I think enjoy coming out and doing trail work. It's sometimes I'll market it as cross training.
It's all in the marketing.
I'll be like, come out for a cross training day and help me haul gravel and get your upper body workout in for the week. So I think it depends on what we're doing. People are more likely to come out if it's, if their long run is not likely to happen because the weather's not great. And, a wet person doesn't like playing with making drainage when it's raining. It's like being a kid. Because, oh, look, I do this, the water goes that way.
I guess there's an interesting sort of weather window, right? The weather needs to be shitty enough that you don't want to go on your run, but it can't be too shitty that you don't want to leave the house, right?
Yeah. There's the shittiness factor.
For sure.
Yeah. That's definitely I have the best luck recruiting people, I think, when the weather is drizzly enough where we can do work and see what needs draining. Because if the trails are dry, it's hard to see. And, the shitty factor for sure. But it would be, I think, as a sport, I think ultra running, there's a lot of races that require trail work, just to sign up. A lot of bigger races that are well known. But those are the runners I tend to see coming out to help. Those that have to do hours. I don't know what would need to shift in our running culture to maybe put it more in the spotlight or make it more fun. Maybe if there was some kind of reward system for having trail work, like race discounts and stuff like that.
I think what needs to happen is that it needs to be a special Strava activity. Then people would do it, right? It would be a thing that you can select trail work. Well, then you can also
bragging factor,
exactly. You have a leaderboard, right? I'm the local legend of that trail.
The local legend of trail work on this trail.
We just solved it.
Reach out to Strava.
We just solved it. I mean,
there needs to be trophies for.
I mean, it is interesting a little bit, right? Because I don't want to bring up the obvious comparison, but the mountain bikers, they need much more groomed trails.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I think there is sort of this understanding built in that they have to do the work, because if they want to land their jump, if they don't want to slip on roots or whatever, right, then they have to go and take care of these trails. So for us, there's always a little bit of this balance, like, well, if the trail's really shitty, then I did something really gnarly and that was cool, right? I mean, we don't understand that if actually all the puddles are drained, we might actually have a much more enjoyable run. But if we, we have to go over all of this crap that is thrown our way, we don't really mind. And so I think it's hard to, other than the altruistic way of saying we should probably do this, we don't have to do it, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a noticeable thing. We do have a lot of mountain bikers who come out pretty frequently to the work parties, and because they're out there anyways. So
yeah. Well, and I think for them it's also a little bit easier, and I'm speaking on behalf of them, so I don't know, but you can ride a couple steep hills and then stop, and you're not completely sweated through, and you can do some trail work, or you first do some trail work and then go riding, where usually for us as trail runners, it's sort of an activity. Once you're done with a 3-hour run, then you don't want to do anything anymore, right? You just want to get home.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, so it is very different, but somehow that mindset needs to shift, right? And so I really appreciate you bringing it up. And I don't know, I think in many ways the other aspect is that so much of our trail culture is sort of brought to us by professional runners. Like we sort of follow the Jim Walmsleys and the Courtney Dowaters, and I don't want to single them out, but you just don't see them doing trail work, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So
maybe if there was more of a, not like, being an example, but if it was the in thing to do.
A little bit, right? Because I think Western states, requires trail work, but I don't ever see the top runners for Western states actually posting about it on Instagram that they're doing trail work, right?
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that they don't do it, but because our culture is so inspired by following these people, if we would see them do it, I think it would feel easier for us to want to do it. Well, so there is the trail working, there is the actual maintaining and putting the hard labor in it, and then there's the whole other aspect of helping out at races and stuff, right?
Yeah. Giving back and giving as much as you could take, so to speak.
A little bit, right? So do you feel like now that we're coming out of COVID, it's harder to recruit volunteers for your races?
This year has been kind of crazy. I've had more people in the last week reach out about wanting to come out and volunteer. I don't know if that's because they're typically people that would have signed up to run, but maybe haven't done the training. And they still want to come hang out.
Good. Whatever works, right?
Whatever works. I know. So it's been, I think this year is very different for me because I actually have more volunteers than I need, which I almost am a little afraid to say because we have 2 weeks to the race still. And I'm like, a lot could happen in 2 weeks.
All right. We'll edit that out. You didn't hear that. Nobody heard that.
Nobody heard it. But it's been, this year's been really nice. And I don't know if other races have experienced this year or if it's just us, but it's been a really slow year as far as registrations go too, which is interesting. Typically we've sold out, and last year we had a long wait list too, which is nuts. So I don't know what's going on, but I know some friends with Lumberjack have said the same thing. It's just kind of slow.
Yeah, I wonder, in some respects, races came back last year, but at least my experience, both as a runner and as a race director, I feel like we were still not really able to bring the culture back, right? Like we can bring the bib back and the flagging and the timing, but sort of what brings people together, I think everybody was still very much unsure how we should behave. And I think that sort of that just creates some hesitation of like, well, do I even want to spend time out there if everything feels awkward and and so I think that's sort of universal. I mean, I haven't eaten out in restaurants a lot, right? I mean, I think we're still sort of testing the water,
figuring it out.
How to get back into all of this, right? So hopefully this will come back. Well, so
this is a good springboard.
Yeah, well, so here it is. Make your pitch. You want people to run Dirty Turtle in Green Mountain. Here's your chance. Tell people why they should come out. You've got the floor.
Oh, well, I think I'm probably a little biased, but I think it's probably one of the most fun weekends at the beginning of the summer. It's right before we have Memorial Day, and usually we have really great weather. We have camping the whole weekend. So the horse camp is open. We've got lots of campsites. The hangout scene after the race is probably my favorite part, because we have a food truck that comes and he makes amazing food. And the food for the runners is paid for already. So right after finishing, as soon as you're ready to like stuff your face, that's right there. And usually there's some, people bring some beer and just kind of bring a chair and just watch other people finish and cheer people on. It's just a ton of fun. And it's nice to see people you haven't seen all winter. So it's a good season opener and gets legs back in good shape for some really tough summer races that you've got planned. So
fantastic. So you've got a 25K and a 50K, and this year you added a ruck option as well.
Oh, yeah. So I ordered some patches this year, so we'll have custom patches with little turtles on them for the 25K ruck option. And so I think we've got Team Red, White, and Blue in Kitsap, and so I know we've recruited several of the guys from over there to do it. And we're kind of starting to spread the word. So hoping to keep it something that we continue year after year, because we always have people sign up who just plan on hiking the whole course. So might as well ruck it.
I know. No, I think it's a great idea. I was just talking with somebody else about this, how I think one of the beauties of our trail races is that we are not locked into a specific format, right? We can be creative and say, what can we offer that hasn't been done outside of like hiding books in the woods or something like that?
Not about that.
Amazing. So give us the date.
So it's Saturday, May 14th is the race, and the camping will be open Friday through Sunday. So if people want to come up the night before or dirt bag after the race and hang out with all the volunteers at the campground after, more than welcome.
Perfect. Yeah. And it's Green Mountain, which is outside Bremerton. Is that the easiest way to describe it? So it's Olympic Peninsula, but not quite. And the trails you've described a little bit. So you've got lots of forest running, lots of woods. The rhododendrons are out in bloom. And then you've got some really gnarly steep sections. You've got rope sections back in the course this year?
We will have the ropes back, yes. So the section we call Turtle Rock is probably the toughest part of the course for a lot of people. It climbs about 1,000 feet in a mile, and it puts you out at the bottom of a climbing area that the mountaineers use for training and Olympic Mountain Rescue uses to practice like high angle rescues and stuff like that. It's a rock face, and it's Some people climb there top roping. So it's an actual rock. And to get to the top of the rock requires grade 3 scrambling. So use of the hands a little bit because it's a steep section and there's rocks and roots and all kinds of fun things. But we always have someone on top of Turtle Rock. And usually he's wearing a very interesting outfit that most people look forward to seeing.
Well, there we go. It's distracting. You might be cursing him out.
It's very distracting.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But so we usually put a rope there, a little hand line for people who they feel uncomfortable. So there's options. And what else do we got? There's a little bit of water, a lot of roadies, a little single track. There's some really runnable sections that are kind of nice. Some little flowy sections that go downhill. So in between the really sucky spots, there's some really nice runnable sections that people can make up time, and it's not all torture, doom and gloom. It's actually a pretty good course, I think, as far as balance goes.
Website, where should people sign up?
So we're using Ultra Sign Up again this year for registration. So if they want to go to Ultra Sign Up and find us there. I'm hoping to finish, we won't have any same day because I usually like to assign the bibs a few days before and get all that ready. The problems of having a full-time job other than race directing. So anticipate closing registration maybe the Monday or Tuesday before the race. So just a few days before. So if people want to sign up, I would kind of get on there in the next couple of days and do that. And Ultra Sign Up. Ultra
Sign Up, Dirty Turtle, Green Mountain. That's fantastic. Yes, come out and run it. I love everything that I'm hearing, even though I have to admit I've not come out myself and run it yet.
Would you like to run it?
I know. I have to look at my schedule. I'm so out of sync right now that I don't know if I would even survive the 25K at this. No, I would. I should be
fine.
I'd be fine. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Gretchen, thank you so much. I think the one thing we didn't talk about is your work with the mountaineers and search and rescue out there and stuff. Do you still have time? Can we chat about this a little bit?
Sure.
I'm curious. So partially, I don't know, I'm putting this onto you. Partially, did you get involved because of your injuries? You needed to find something to do. Give us a little bit of an insight into that world we as trail runners don't often interface with.
I think so. After I ran my first ultra, which was Chuckanut, a few years ago, the Mount Baker Ultra started advertising, and they were coming back. And I had never climbed on glacier, had no mountaineering experience other than running in the Olympics and woohoo, Mount Townsend, So I was like, well, clearly I need to take a mountaineering class because I want to run this race. And so I signed up and everything, but I needed a resume of climbing or had taken a mountaineering course. At least that's how it was early in the Mount Baker Ultra. They had some requirements. So I signed up for a basic mountaineering course and went through that course and kind of went down the rabbit hole. Because actually trail running and doing ultras and being out in the woods for long periods of time, you're like, I want to climb that over there. That looks fun. And I'm tired of getting out of my comfort zone and wanted to get a little more knowledgeable. So it was a good course. Highly recommend it. So after that, I jumped into the intermediate program where you spend a lot more time learning lead climbing on rock and learning how to do rescue techniques and stuff like that. So if you're ever in a situation where you have a climber with you who's less knowledgeable, you can at least get them safely down the mountain or down off the rock climb using the stuff that you have with you. So you did what we all should be doing, right? I think you're explaining it really well. How many times
do we as trail runners run down a trail and we get to a place where we, with our short shorts and no gear, right? We really shouldn't be playing on, and we sort of think we're invincible, and we try it, and we potentially get ourselves in trouble. And so to be able to say, well, wait a second, this rock face, whatever, looks enticing, I'm going to get myself knowledgeable. Now, I think it's important because, I don't know, I mean, I would put myself into a category where I'm going to say, I'm not a complete daredevil, but I do sort of in the moment say, let's just keep going a little bit. Let's just try a little bit further. And then I look back and I'm like, where am I and how did I get here? Right?
Well, we have the ultimate playground, right? The Olympics, and it's so easy to go up there and you're like, oh, I'm at Lake of the Angels. I've heard Mount Stone is a lot of fun. I could do that, and it is doable. It's just knowing how to get yourself back down. Going up is the easy part usually.
Yeah. And it is challenging. You bring up the Olympics, and the Olympics is an interesting place because you've got a few trails, and some of them are runnable, some of them are steep, but very quickly you get not cliffed out, but trailed out, right? I mean, and I mean, I've spent time in the Alps. In the Alps, most of these mountains would have fixed metal ropes that you could sort of via ferrata style, right? And it gives you a couple things, right? Number one, it gives you the preferred route that you should be taking. Number two, it gives you something to hold on to. So you still have to be careful, and there might be exposure, but at least you can hold on to a solid metal rope. And so I think that it gives you that comfort. Am I even on the right path? Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of, I don't know if you've done Eagle Peak at Rainier, right? And there's an official trail right out of Longmire. There's an official trail that goes up to the saddle of Eagle Peak, and everybody does that, right? And calls it, I've done the Eagle Peak Trail. But then there is this sort of summit block, but it's not like a summit block like Eleanor where you're like, okay, this is where you're going, right? It's like you don't really know, and you have to sort of climb around, and it gets very quickly from this is an obvious trail right out of Longmire to this is climbing, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're dead, right?
Yeah.
And they do have a sign that says end of maintained trail, because that's what the national park does in order to preserve the liability. But it would be so obvious to have some metal rope there, right? So anyway, long tangent. What I'm saying is you did all the courses and you know how to actually move on this terrain, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. And then, one thing leads to another, and friends are talking you into joining mountain rescue, and it was a pretty easy transition. So now I'm doing both. Volunteering with the Mountaineers, helping teach the basic climbing course, and helping out in a leadership role there for the Kitsap Mountaineers, and a rescue support member for Olympic Mountain Rescue. So,
and you still have a full-time job.
And kids.
So okay, it seems your plate is full. I like it.
Yeah.
So, Search and rescue, you didn't get called up to Mount Walker a few days ago.
No, thankfully. Funny thing, I think this year I'm going to put some signs on the bathrooms at the horse camp about, leave your phone outside.
Absolutely.
There's no rescue services here.
I don't know. I'm just not even going to go into that story. Somebody dropped their phone at the Mount Walker trailhead into a pit toilet and decided that the sensible thing would be to actually climb down and try to retrieve it, which meant they ended up being stuck in there, needed emergency service.
Too.
It is. I mean, I love my phone too, right? I mean, understand, and if it's a new phone and on a 2-year contract or something, right? I understand how much that hurts, losing a phone, but there is a level of sacrifice that I don't know if I would take.
Not that far. Mm-mm. You get a new phone.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, what a great story to end this podcast with. All right, I know that's what you've been waiting for. So here it is. Email me at trails@singletrack.fm. Trails@singletrack.fm and say, hey, I want to run Dirty Turtle and I'll get you a code for free entry. How easy is that? But hurry. This is first come, first serve. So go now. Email me now. Hurry. Run. Dirty Turtle is waiting.